1498. A great navigator is on his third expedition to distant lands. On a new, more southern route, the crew discovers another previously unknown island and a rather strange shore. Strange because the water in the vicinity was almost fresh. This could only be because of the only reason: a very powerful and full-flowing river flows into the ocean somewhere nearby. It would seem, so what? Well, such a large river can't form on an island. For all those water volumes to originate, it would take a whole continent that nobody had ever known before. That navigator was Christopher Columbus, and you've probably already guessed that's how South America was discovered. The discoverers didn't realize that the scale of their discovery would be akin to finding an exoplanet full of life and inhabited by pretty smart natives. And now, 5 centuries later, this continent never fails to amaze. Today, you're going to learn: where is the place that hasn't seen a single rainfall for 400 years? What does a canyon look like that's even deeper than the Grand Canyon? How could a sense of frustration have caused the demise of an entire civilization? What ancient city lies at the bottom of Lake Titicaca? And so much more. Mysteries of South America. Help us share the information about this great continent by clicking the like button. Your likes matter a lot. Let's start with a little revelation. You've probably heard that South America is often referred to as Latin America. Actually, it's not the same thing. South is a geographical term, while Latin is a cultural term. Latin America also includes the Caribbean and Central America. However, the South American Suriname and Guyana do not belong to Latin America. And since we started with fascinating country studies, let's continue with them. After all, South America can surprise, even at a cursory acquaintance. The area of South America is 17,840,000 square kilometers, 6,888,062 square miles. This is roughly equal to the entire surface of the dwarf planet Pluto. Its territory could accommodate almost all of the countries of Europe put together twice. You could fit 32 times France, 50 times Germany, or 73 times Great Britain on this continent. Yet, the population of the entire South America is about 4 times smaller than the population of China and 3 times smaller than the population of India. About half of the entire South American population lives in Brazil. They speak a local dialect of Portuguese. There are more Portuguese speakers in Brazil than in Portugal itself. The only English-speaking country on the South American continent is Guyana, one of the poorest countries in the world. The French language is also widespread here. It is spoken in French Guiana, one of the remaining overseas colonies of France, and the official currency there is the euro. The South American country Venezuela was named after the Italian city of Venice. The discoverer, Amerigo Vespucci, saw the local people's houses built on piles on the shore and thought that they reminded him of Venice. In Argentina and Uruguay, the majority of the population are direct descendants of Spaniards and Italians, and the locals look like Europeans. And the most indigenous population is mostly concentrated in Bolivia and Peru. In the Republic of Chile, between 10 and 25% of the population, according to various estimates, are from the Spanish Basque country and their direct descendants. In the same Chile, about 3% of the population is ethnically Croatian, and about 500,000 people are German. There is even a country in South America where the Dutch language is spoken, Suriname, a former colony of the Netherlands. The remote and inaccessible places of the continent are still inhabited by tribes leading a primitive way of life. They are carefully protected from contact with civilization, and their location is not disclosed. We talked about it in one of the previous videos about the Amazon jungle. You can often find another surprising fact on the web saying that duels are still allowed in Paraguay, one of the countries of South America. Actually, this is a myth, and the Paraguayan authorities have repeatedly rejected it. This continent in general is full of sharp contradictions, perhaps even more so than Africa. South America holds many records. It is in South America that the wettest settlement on Earth is located. It is the Colombian city of Buenaventura, where it rains more than anywhere else. The driest of the hot deserts, Atacama, is also located on the South American continent. It's even drier than the Sahara. Some parts of it have not seen a single rainfall for over 400 years. In other parts of the Atacama, rainfall occurs every few decades. The South American salt flat of Uyuni in Bolivia, formed on the place of a dried-up lake, gets covered with a thin layer of water during the rainy season, which turns it into one giant mirror, the largest on Earth. The world's most famous waterfalls are also located in South America. Angel Falls is the tallest waterfall in the world, almost a kilometer high, and the powerful system of the Iguazu Falls is included in the list of the 7 natural wonders of the world. Lake Titicaca is the world's highest navigable lake. It lies at an altitude of more than 3,800 meters, 12,500 feet above sea level. Locals believe there is a submerged ancient city about 1,500 years old at the bottom of the lake. And it's not just a legend. Further, you will see the amazing finds that have been discovered at the bottom of the lake. Colca Canyon in South America is twice as deep as the Grand Canyon in the United States. The South American jungle is home to the world's largest snakes, anacondas, and some of the world's smallest monkeys, marmosets. In South America, at the confluence of the Catatumbo River into Lake Maracaibo, there is an anomaly. A place where lightning strikes more often than anywhere else on Earth. There are up to 200 thunderstorm days here every year, and the average number of lightning strikes per 1 squared kilometer of surface is about 250 per year. The South American Andes, or Andean Cordillera, are the world's longest mountain range. It stretches for 8,900 kilometers, 5,500 miles. That's roughly equal to the entire country of Russia from west to east. It is in South America that the world's most high-altitude capital is located. This is the Bolivian city of La Paz, lying at an altitude of 3,640 meters, 11,942 feet above sea level. The South American volcano Ojos del Salado, rising to 6,887 meters, is the highest volcano on Earth. The mighty Amazon, the longest river in the world, flows through South America. It is ranked first in terms of catchment basin and water capacity. South American Lake Maracaibo is the largest lake in South America and the second oldest of all lakes on Earth. It is nearly equal in area to a country as large as Montenegro. The summit of the South American volcano Chimborazo, which rises to a height of 6,267 meters, is the most distant point of the Earth's surface from the center. It is 3.4 kilometers, 2.17 miles farther from it than the summit of Mount Everest. You may ask, how can this be? It's because our planet does not have quite a regular spherical shape, but is slightly oblate-shaped. All of the above is just part of the amazing record set by the continent in an imaginary competition with other continents. But why is it so? How did it happen that these lands collected such a bunch of metals? There are several reasons for this. In many respects, the very history of the continent's formation became the decisive factor. In the distant geologic past, the lands of present-day South America were part of the supercontinent of Pangaea. It also included Antarctica, Australia, and Africa. More than 200 million years ago, Pangaea began to split apart. First into two major parts, Gondwana and Laurasia. Gondwana, including future South America, became the modern southern hemisphere. To the north lies the boundaries of the South American plate, with a relatively small Caribbean plate. To the west with the Nazca plate, and even further south with the Antarctic lithospheric plate. The interaction of these plates resulted in a chain of deep sea grooves along the Pacific coast of South America and a mountain belt on the mainland. The Andes extend in a meridional direction and run across the entire continent. If the junction of the lithospheric plates were slightly to the left, these mountains would also exist, but underwater. And on the surface of the ocean, we would see a very long archipelago. Perhaps it would be very interesting, but we would then be deprived not only of these beautiful landscapes, but also part of the modern astronomy that we know. In fact, it is in the highlands of Chile with the crystal clear air that the largest and most important ground-based observatories are located. Paranal, La Silla, Las Campanas, the famous ALMA Observatory, and others. ALMA stands for Atacama Large Millimeter Array. Yes, this complex is not just in the mountains at an altitude of 5,000 meters, about 3,000 miles, but also in the Atacama Desert. ALMA is responsible for the most detailed image of the star Betelgeuse to date, and this is not the only achievement of the observatory. Who knows what our astronomy would be if we did not have this South America with its mountains and desert? Andes, by the way, continue to grow, which means that these are very active, living mountains. The entire Andean belt experiences earthquakes, including very destructive ones. There are many extinct and active volcanoes in the Andes. The highest active volcano in the world, ReYOUniverse, with a height of 6,739 meters, 22,110 feet, is located here. For all the unusual nature of the Andes, they can surprise even a seasoned traveler or geologist. What do you think about this? These are the so-called Rainbow Mountains. They are located 100 kilometers, 60 miles from Cusco in the province of Quispicanquis at an altitude of 5,200 meters, 17,100 feet above sea level, among snowy peaks and turquoise lagoons. From there, you have a magnificent view of the Asen Gate Glacier, a sacred Inca mountain where pilgrims gather each year to celebrate the Day of Coyuriti. To be precise, it is Mount Vinicunca that has different names in different languages. Rainbow Mountain, Rainbow Arco Iris, Mountain of Seven Colors, Montaña de Siete Colores, and Red Hill, Cerro Colorado. The other Rainbow Mountains of Peru recently opened to tourists are the three Palcoyo Mountains. They are lower than Vinicunca, 4,850 meters, 15,912 feet above sea level. These colored layers of mountains were formed millions of years ago from red sandstone, which, under the influence of climatic conditions, groundwater, and mineral substances, was colored in yellow, green, white, and other colors. Thus, nature shows us once again that it is capable of creating real works of art. And the most fascinating of them are those that can be observed in dynamics. We have already mentioned that it is in South America that the highest waterfall in the world is located, Angel Falls. Yes, it is impressive. First of all, with its height, 979 meters, 3,212 feet. But what really takes your breath away is getting to the observation deck of another famous waterfall, Iguazu. This is truly a landscape that looks like it's from another planet, like Cameron's Pandora. Again, when we hear the word waterfall, we involuntarily imagine something standing alone. But Iguazu is a huge complex of waterfalls, 2.7 kilometers, 1.7 miles wide. It includes about 275 individual waterfalls. The height of the falling water reaches up to 82 meters, 269 feet. But most of the waterfalls are just over 60 meters, 196 feet. The largest is Garganta del Diablo, a U-shaped cliff 150 meters, 492 feet wide, and 700 meters, 2,296 feet long. This waterfall marks the border between Brazil and Argentina. This huge giant has a good supply of food. In the rainy season, about 2,000 millimeters, 78 inches of precipitation falls in the area. But there are also surprises. You wouldn't believe it, but even such a giant was briefly dried up. In 1978, the waterfall was in hibernation for a whole month. Now, for the acuity of sensations, we would need something opposite to this abundance of turbulent water. And what could play this role better than a desert? And there is one in South America, the Atacama Desert. We've already mentioned that it's one of the driest places on the planet. You think that's because it's so hot. Well, it's a desert. But no, that's not the case. Atacama can be considered one of the coldest deserts as well. The average temperature on the coast in January is 19 to 20 degrees Celsius, 66 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. In July, 13 to 14 degrees Celsius, or 55 to 57 degrees Fahrenheit. That is, to put it mildly, far from the usual stereotypes. Why is it so terribly dry here? The Peruvian current is partly to blame. It cools the lower layers of the atmosphere and creates a temperature inversion that prevents precipitation. The average annual rainfall here is less than 50 millimeters, 2 inches. The flat part of the desert is almost lifeless. There are only lichens, small cacti, and some other very sparse flora. But people still manage to somehow live in these almost Martian conditions. Where do they get water? The locals use fog catchers to collect water. These are cylinders as tall as a man, the walls of which are made of nylon threads. Fog condenses on the walls of the cylinder and flows down the nylon threads into a barrel. With such a device, you can collect up to 18 liters, 5 gallons of water per day. Anyway, this works only in places where this fog happens, and there are not so many of them. By the way, there are also difficulties with glaciers here. There are glaciers, but very few. They just cannot appear due to the same scarcity of precipitation. But there is plenty of ice in one of the most picturesque places in South America, in the Perito Moreno Glacier. This is a giant mass of ice in the Los Glaciares National Park in the southwest of Argentina's Santa Cruz province. Its area is 250 square kilometers, 60 square miles. It is in fact a whole ice plateau, and at the same time, the third largest reserve of fresh water in the world. The width of the Perito Moreno tongue is 5 kilometers, 3 miles. The average height is 60 meters, 196 feet above the water surface. The average depth is 170 meters, 557 feet. The maximum depth reaches 700 meters, 2,296 feet. Another remarkable thing is that this glacier does not retreat as many glaciers do today. Its forward speed is 2 meters, 6 to 7 feet per day, about 700 meters, 2,296 feet per year. However, the mass loss is about the same. so the glacier tongue has not retreated or advanced for 90 years. Still, periodically, the glacier advances on Lake Argentino, reaching the opposite shore and creating a natural dam. This dam divides the lake into two parts. Deprived of runoff, the water in the southern part of the lake can rise up to 30 meters, 100 feet above the level of the main lake. The sheer pressure of such a mass of water eventually crushes the ice barrier holding it back. And it's an awesome sight for sure. However, the cycle of dam formation and breaching is irregular and repeats with varying frequency, from once a year to less than once per decade. Now, if we want to see something equally impregnable, but much more predictable, we should head to Venezuela, home to the most beautiful table mountains in the world. Table mountains are called so for an obvious reason. Their peaks are flat and very vast areas. This is exactly how Kukinin Mount looks like, and the falls are especially picturesque. It is far from being the biggest, but it is so special that it can be seen everywhere people try to portray something beautiful. You see it as if it were a thin stream running down a cliff, but it's actually a rather substantial river. But it only looks like a stream in scale because it falls from a height of 674 meters, 2,214 feet. Yes, it's the second tallest waterfall in South America, after Angel Falls. And finally, another natural wonder. Do you remember we said at the beginning of the video that there is a canyon in South America which is even deeper than the Grand Canyon in the USA? Well, that's where we're going now. Colca Canyon is a large geological formation in the south of Peru, in the valley of the Colca River. The canyon is approximately 90 kilometers, 56 miles long, and 3 to 5 kilometers, 2 to 3 miles wide. Yes, it is far from the Grand Canyon with its length of 446 kilometers, 277 miles, and a width of almost 30 kilometers, 18 miles. But still, the depth is unrivaled. How could it have formed? Well, it's not just the river that worked to create it. It was largely due to active mountain formation. The intense uplift of the Andes led to the formation of numerous cracks. Colca Canyon is just the largest of them. The height of the mountains surrounding the canyon is more than 5 kilometers, 3 miles. But the bottom of the canyon is still quite high, about 2 kilometers, 1.2 miles above sea level. Many lucky tourists who got to the observation deck La Cruz del Condor were able to watch the majestic flight of a huge eagle, Andean condor, the symbol of the canyon. These relief and massive formations have been honed by our planet for over millions of years. But it has excelled in creating a mind-boggling diversity of living organisms. The continent's climate, even more versatile than that of Africa, has contributed to this. And of course, the absolutely breathtaking exuberance of life is concentrated in the basin of the majestic Amazon. We have previously devoted a whole video to it, and now we will remind you of the highlights. The tropical forest occupies the watershed of the Amazon and its inflows in northern South America over an area of 2,300,000 square miles, 6 million square kilometers. Occupying about 40% of Brazil's total area, the basin is bordered by the Guiana Highlands to the north, the Andes to the west, the central Brazilian plateau to the south, and the Atlantic Ocean to the east. It is the largest tropical rainforest in the world. It covers an area larger than India, which, by the way, is one of the biggest countries in the world. It is home to millions of different animals and plants, and the forest itself plays a vital role in the Earth's ecosystem. There are still tribes here, leading a way of life as they did in the pre-Columbian era. Some scientists estimate that there are about 400 to 500 such tribes living in the Amazon forest. About 50 tribes have never had contact with the outside world. The Amazon rainforest is also called the lungs of the earth, and it's pretty much true because about 20% of the total amount of oxygen on our planet is produced here in this rainforest. It's also home to more than 2.5 million insect species, not specimens, but species. Electric eels are also doing quite well in the Amazon. The river is also home to the toothy piranha fish, which has earned an eerie fame. Legends say that a pack of hungry piranhas can eat a live cow to the bone in a matter of minutes. In reality, it's not so dramatic, and piranhas are rather timid. Nevertheless, they have sharp and strong jaws, which are regularly used for their intended purpose. Also, the anaconda lives here, and only here. It is the largest snake in the world. Its length reaches 9 meters, 30 feet. Fortunately for humans, it does not consider humans as prey, but it can still easily kill an adult human by mistake or out of fear. Unfortunately, the future of these mind-blowingly rich places does not look bright, all because of the growing volumes of both illegal and legal logging. About 60 hectares, 150 acres of Amazonian rainforest is being destroyed every minute. This is one of the saddest facts, and the situation is getting worse and worse here every year. If the Amazon rainforest disappears, we will lose about half of the life forms on our planet. After all, biologists estimate that over 10 million species live within the Amazon, taking into account all animals, insects, and plants. To this day, new species of plants and insects are being regularly discovered in the jungles surrounding the Amazon. They have not yet been fully explored. With all the amazing and diverse flora and fauna of South America, there is something that is leading by a landslide in terms of interest of both ordinary people and the scientific community. We are talking, of course, about the heritage of ancient civilizations. By the number of breathtaking archaeological discoveries, the continent easily rivals any other place on Earth. You've all heard of the Mayans, who left behind amazing pyramidal structures. But they are located in Mexico, that is, in North America. We are now going to talk about a less known but no less fascinating civilization in South America, Mochica. These people also left behind a rich cultural heritage, and some finds are so valuable that they are considered equal in importance to the tomb of Egyptian Tutankhamun. In 1987, archaeologists discovered a tomb on the coast of Peru. As soon as it turned out, it belonged to the legendary ruler of Saipan, who was the lord of a small but powerful civilization more than 1,000 years ago. His people erected huge and beautiful pyramids, built stone roads, and made magnificent jewelry from gold and silver. Paradoxically, this nation was very good at chemistry, yet it failed to invent the wheel. This is also true for other peoples on the continent. How and why? To this day, modern scientists have no answer. Another perplexing thing is the strange coexistence of such advanced sciences and the astonishing bloodlust of the priests. Nowadays, these lands are inhabited by zealous Catholics, piously honoring the Virgin Mary and all peaceful Christian values. But in pre-Columbian times, what was most honored here was human sacrifice. One of the most interesting places is the city of Trujillo. If you take a quick look at its surroundings, it would seem as if the city was surrounded by bizarre rocks. But it isn't. All these rocks are the ruins of the Wagga Rajada burial site. Archaeologists and historians have managed to find out what it looked like in the time of Mochica. Huge pyramids were decorated with many bright frescoes extending upwards for dozens of meters. It was here that the Peruvian archaeologist Walter Alva found a burial site in 1987, which came as a bombshell in the scientific world. no ruler of any empire in South and Latin America could boast of such a rich tomb. In its splendor, it was comparable to the tomb of Tutankhamun. But the main sensation consisted in another thing. Part of the copper jewelry was gold-plated. The fact is that such a technology appeared in advanced Europe only in the 18th century. The Mochica civilization existed for about 800 years, starting from the 1st century AD, and then its sun went out, suddenly and relatively quickly. There are several theories explaining the demise of the people. According to one, they were wiped out by neighboring tribes. According to another, the Mochica went too far with their sacrifices and simply destroyed themselves. Both theories are plausible. But there is another version, which is considered to be the most likely, and yet it does not lack a certain poetic sentiment in its tragedy. Many scientists believe that the people of Mochica were simply psychologically devastated. The fact is that the priests had long calculated the periodicity of rainy seasons and droughts, so they convinced the people that they could control the weather and the elements. Simply put, they took the place of the gods. However, there was a glitch in the 7th century AD. Cataclysms struck the land of Mochica. First, it rained for a very long time, and then the rain was replaced by years of drought. And the people who believed they were equal to the gods simply broke down psychologically. Priests killed tens of thousands of people, trying to beg forgiveness from the higher powers. But nothing helped. Riots broke out in the country. The feud lasted for several decades and ended with the death of this contradictory and strange, but still amazing pre-Columbian civilization. And what was left behind? Very, very many things. The excavation of the tomb of the Saipan ruler alone has given a completely new look at the Mochica culture. Apparently, these people did not create their own empire. Their rule spread over a fairly small area of the coast, about 350 kilometers, 217 miles. But the Mochica are recognized as one of the most outstanding cultures of pre-Columbian America. Although the Mochica did not know bronze, they created exquisite chased jewelry made of gold and alloys of gold, silver, and copper. Like the Romans, the Mochica built huge and long-lasting channels with aqueducts. One of them, La Cumbre, is 130 kilometers, 80 miles long. Actually, it is primarily a channel. When the channels crossed ravines and low places, the Mochica built dikes over which they let the water flow. This is how the first aqueducts emerged. Another aqueduct, the Ascope Aqueduct, located in the Chicama Valley, reaches a height of 15 meters, 49 feet, and a length of 1.4 kilometers, 0.89 miles. According to experts' calculations, 783,000 cubic meters, 27,658,200 cubic feet of earth had to be moved in order to create the embankment on which it runs. This aqueduct dam remained intact until its functioning was disrupted during the unusually rainy season of 1925. The Mochica were the first Peruvian Indians to construct wide stone-paved roads. Although, let us recall, they did not know the wheel. Remains of these roads can still be seen today in the Chicama Valley. The width of Mochica's roads was always exactly equal to 9.8 meters, 32 feet. And each side of some of their pyramids, 98 meters, 321 feet, and each side of some of their pyramids, 98 meters, 321 feet. So researchers believe that 9.8 meters was a unit of length for Mochica. Drawings on ceramics are also of special interest. Tens of thousands of painted vessels originating from the Mochica culture have remained to present day. These drawings depict their multifaceted culture. Specialists believe that in terms of the epic broadness of depicting the culture of its creators, The Mochica ceramics surpasses even ancient Greek ceramics. For all the obvious and surprisingly high development of the Mochica people, they were only a forerunner of something much bigger, the Inca civilization. Historians believe that the Inca Empire was the largest and most powerful state in pre-Columbian America. It was located in what is now Peru, as well as parts of Chile and Ecuador. This state was formed around the beginning of the 13th century, and after only 200 years, its domain covered a huge area where 10 million people lived. Inevitably, comparisons with Genghis Khan or Alexander the Great come into our minds. Probably each major civilization had its great commanders. In the Spanish chronicles, as well as in the memoirs of the modern peoples of South America, there are two different legends describing how the Inca civilization arose. One of them places the homelands of the empire's first rulers along the shores of Lake Titicaca, while the other puts them a few dozen kilometers south of the empire's former capital, Cuzco, on the border of Bolivia and Peru. Scientists confirmed the first legend back in 1977. At that time, amateur divers who were diving near the island of Isla del Sol in the center of Lake Titicaca found several artifacts of presumably religious nature. From that point on, a series of discoveries began, and the interest of ordinary citizens and scientists literally stuck to this amazing lake for many decades. And now you will find out what mysteries of the lake have been uncovered. First, let's consider some facts about the lake itself. It is the largest lake in South America by water volume, and the second largest by surface area, spanning 8,732 square kilometers, 3,232 square miles. The lake is even navigable. Moreover, at an altitude of 3,812 meters, 12,507 feet, it is one of the highest lakes in the world. To put this in perspective, the height of Mount Fuji, one of the most recognizable mountains in the world, is 3,776 meters, 12,390 feet, which is slightly lower. But while Fuji is a mountain peak, here we are talking about a vast highland lake. By all accounts, this is quite an unusual phenomenon. And if you need more facts to fully grasp its scale, here's some more. Over 300 rivers flow into the lake, originating from glaciers surrounding the Altiplano Plateau. The lake has 41 islands, some of which are densely populated. Despite the skepticism scientists tend to have, we think you'd agree there's plenty of room at the bottom of this lake to hide a massive city. So, what did archaeologists discover? During the initial 1977 expedition, only a couple of ambiguous artifacts were found. However, in subsequent attempts, researchers came much better equipped. Many excavations were conducted on and around the Koa Reef, near the island bearing the same name. The count of found artifacts reached thousands in no time. But there was a catch. All of these artifacts got to the bottom of the lake from the outside. Whether accidentally or intentionally, the Incas threw them into the water during religious ceremonies. Therefore, while these items were ancient, they did not necessarily suggest that there was a submerged city at the bottom of Lake Titicaca. But scientists and enthusiasts didn't give up. Back in 2002, a team of researchers discovered something that genuinely belonged on land, not underwater. They discovered not just fragments, but whole Incan artifacts, specifically stone sacrificial boxes with figurines and other offerings to gods or ancestral spirits inside. Then, real signs of a settlement were found. The remnants of the structures didn't exactly qualify as an entire city, but there was no doubt that it was some kind of settlement. For our purposes, let's refer to it as a city. According to scholars, this settlement marks the beginning of Peruvian history. Incidentally, researchers calculated that at the same time, the lake level was about 20 meters, 65 feet lower than it is now. At the city's center, divers discovered a stone slab resembling an altar adorned with pottery, with fragments of llama bones on the slab. It seems this place was used for sacrifices. A 20-meter, 65-foot thick stone pillar was found somewhere in the middle of the lake, topped with a llama figure, which also likely held a sacred significance. Archaeologists believe these artifacts belong to the Tiahuanaco civilization, known for their stone masonry, which peaked in the 9th to 10th centuries. Further excavations on the island revealed it served as a major religious and cultural hub for both the Incan state and its predecessors. Recently, American and Belgian anthropologists made an even more astonishing discovery, examining the lake bed near the reef close to the eastern shores of Titicaca. Close to the smallest of these islands, divers came across a large stone chest, securely sealed with a stone lid. Inside, they found a miniature llama figurine carved from the shell of a spiny oyster, Spondylidae, and a small scroll of gold leaf. Both items were of great value to the Incas, as mollusks from the Spondylus genus are only found along the Pacific coast near Ecuador, 2,000 meters, 1,250 miles from Lake Titicaca. Scientists believe that this discovery confirms that Lake Titicaca held immense cultural and religious significance for the Incas, unifying many disparate peoples who were part of their empire. Researchers hope that future underwater excavations will help them uncover other similar sites, home to untouched artifacts of pre-Columbian America. But to fully appreciate the legacy of the Incas, we need to step out of the water and onto land and head to the vicinity of the city of Cusco to see Sacsayhuaman, one of the enigmatic landmarks of Peru. This amazing archaeological complex lies at an altitude of 3,500 meters, 11,500 feet, not far from the city of Cusco. The name can be translated in various ways, including spotted hawk, royal eagle, and even marblehead. In the Quichua language, it also means a well-fed falcon. Scientists presume that it was constructed at the turn of the 1st and 2nd millennia. The distinctive feature of Sacsayhuaman is its zigzag-shaped, 3-layered walls reaching up to 15 meters, 50 feet in height. The walls are located on the northern side of the city. The longest wall is 400 meters, 1,312 feet long, and 6 meters, 19 feet high. The area of the site covers over 3,000 hectares, 7,413 acres. There's a circular structure at the heart of the complex. According to different theories, it could have been a temple, a sundial, or a water tower. Today, only its foundation, comprising 3 concentric circles, is left. The building's original height remains a mystery, much like a lot of facts about this place. Researchers propose various hypotheses about the origin of this fascinating relic. It's attributed to the Inca people. It's believed to be a fortress shielding the Inca Empire's capital, and at the same time, a complex of temples. Some posit that Sacsayhuaman was a military garrison. According to various speculations, the zigzag walls symbolize lightning, a deity worshipped by the Incas. However, some scholars don't attribute the construction to the Incas, suggesting the involvement of some other peoples. Historical records indicate that the Incas lacked the advanced technology to create such mind-blowing fortifications. And there's a lot of stuff that can blow your mind away. The multi-ton blocks used to build the walls were sourced from different quarries, somehow transported to Sacsayhuaman, and then put together with staggering precision. No binding material was used in the construction. If it wasn't the Incas, then who was it? Unfortunately, no one knows the answer to this question. Similarly, historians can't reliably explain the meticulous precision of the stone fitting. there are only theories of varying degrees of credibility. But if you're looking for something utterly implausible brought to life, the Incas will never fail to surprise you. There exists a mysterious Incan settlement that was once overlooked even by the conquistadors. It lies 2,450 meters, 8,038 feet above sea level, and has such a unique layout that one can't help but wonder if the architects of the time wanted to hide it from the rest of the world. Unfortunately, the true name of the city remains a mystery. We only know the relatively modern term, Machu Picchu, which literally translates as Old Mountain. In 1911, the city was discovered by American researcher and Yale University professor Hiram Bingham. It was accidentally photographed from an airplane, prompting Bingham's expedition. He was guided by one of the young locals. The event was so special that the authorities even sent security guards to accompany the research team. Imagine the overwhelming emotions researchers felt. They had photos of a real city no one knew anything about for at least 400 years. The air was filled with anticipation of what they might find. Yet, Bingham's expedition took on a prosaic twist when he found simple peasants living in this forsaken city. Moreover, they couldn't have been clearer about their unwillingness to interact with any visitors or emissaries of external civilization. Bingham's group received another small reality check upon seeing charcoal inscriptions of names on the city's granite walls. They weren't the first ones to come here. However, these minor setbacks couldn't overshadow their success and the significance of the discovery itself. Scientists quickly found out that the city was none other than the residence of the supreme Inca ruler, Pasha Kutek. After his death, the Incas put the city to good use. It became an educational hub for children from noble families. Men learned astronomy, and women studied textile crafts. Another theory suggests that the city was used for defense and military purposes, ensuring control over the subordinate tribes. Moreover, Machu Picchu managed to access fertile tropical and subtropical regions where fruits, pumpkins, and vital medicinal plants were cultivated. In general, the discovered ruins took scientists by surprise. The city's architecture was robust and reliable. The buildings typically had 2 stories with thatched roofs and stone walls. The blocks were perfectly aligned. In specific places, the buildings had gaps seemingly designed for earthquakes. What surprised researchers even more is that the ancient builders didn't use any bonding agents or adhesives. Just like with the Sacsayhuaman fortress, the stones were held in place solely by their own weight. Constructing a city in such an inconvenient location required incredible skill. Modern experts believe that preparing the site and laying the foundation accounts for about half of the building efforts. To build such a city, the constructors would have needed extensive knowledge of topography, geology, astronomy, and even ecology. Builders leveraged the natural slopes and employed techniques that ensure structural integrity, even in the event of a rock movement or an earthquake. One of the most intriguing artifacts of Machu Picchu is Intihuatana, the so-called sunstone. It lies on a triangular platform and resembles a large fist with a finger pointing upward. According to legend, the Incas ritually tied the sun to this finger so that it wouldn't run away from them during the winter solstice. Another theory suggests that this was a solar observatory. Machu Picchu has not been fully explored to this day. Since 1983, this extraordinary city has been on UNESCO's World Heritage List, and since 2007, it's been celebrated as one of the new wonders of the world. But wait a minute, let's go back to those peasants Bingham encountered. Who were they? Did they originally live in this city? What happened to Machu Picchu's actual indigenous inhabitants? Well, here's where the plot thickens, as it involves rather mysterious and tragic events. The inhabitants of Machu Picchu vanished after the Spanish colonizers invaded the Inca Empire in 1532. The first theory suggests that Machu Picchu relied on the provisions from the Incan capital, which was about 100 kilometers, 62 miles away. When the invaders came and disrupted food supplies, famine gradually drove residents out of the city. According to the second theory, around 5,000 people from the lower classes went to combat the Spanish invaders, while 3,000 of the nobility retreated to the legendary Vilcabamba, taking their treasures with them. However, one can only speculate why the city was actually abandoned. Yet, the mysterious deserted city is still a city, and we can somewhat understand its purpose. Meanwhile, the ancient South American civilizations also created something that has baffled humanity for decades. This is the Nazca Plateau in the southern part of Peru. It's located in a dry area between the cities of Nazca and Palpa, stretching over 80 kilometers, 50 miles. It is here that one discovers a unique collection of ancient geoglyphs, giant ground drawings that can only be viewed from above. Today, we know about 143 drawings depicting birds, a monkey, a spider, flowers, and more. But besides these recognizable drawings, there were found around 13,000 lines and stripes and about 700 geometric shapes, primarily triangles and trapezoids, as well as around 100 spirals. Some were actually huge, reaching 100 meters, 330 feet, and more. Who were all these messages addressed to? Interestingly, this remarkable site was rediscovered multiple times. The Nazca geoglyphs were first reported in 1553 by the Spanish historian, geographer, and humanist Pedro Cieza de León. At the time, however, he only saw them as some sort of route markers. Please keep in mind, airplanes did not exist back then, so the scholar couldn't fully comprehend what he was really seeing. Although one could partially see the lines from nearby hills, no one could make out their shapes until the 20th century. Peruvian military and civilian pilots were the first to report them. Then, in 1927, the Peruvian archaeologist Toribio Mejia Chespe noticed the shapes during his highland expedition. He also discussed them at a Lima conference in 1939. From that year on, global interest in these fascinating drawings has surged exponentially. Naturally, the first question that came up was how were they made? Surprisingly, the answer was both straightforward and trivial. The images were created by removing the top layer of soil to a depth of just a dozen inches, no more than 0.5 meters, 1.5 feet. Thanks to the region's extreme aridity, the geoglyphs have been preserved for centuries. While scientists quickly understood the question of how, the why proved to be much more elusive. What drove the ancient natives to undertake this endeavor? Over the years, this has become a highly debatable topic, with an unimaginable number of speculations. Skeptics tend to lean towards more trivial explanations. Romantics and fringe theorists excitedly suggest extraterrestrial involvement. As of now, we don't have a theory that conclusively explains this phenomenon, as the key point of the puzzle doesn't align. It makes sense that these shapes were addressed to someone who could see them. Otherwise, what's the point? To someone looking down from high above. After all, the images themselves are literally gazing up at the sky, as if waiting for someone. One can only guess who South America is sending greetings to.